Diana.
Christine.
Do you ever steal food off your kids' plates?
Okay, so we all know kids leave a lot of leftovers on their plates, unless you have like a ravenous child who eats everything.
Said no kid ever.
Right. So there's definitely been situations where there's like leftover food on the plate that I will purloin potentially, but I don't know if I like rob them of their food.
Do you know what we call it in our house?
Yeah.
We call it like the mom tax or the
mom
dad tax. Yeah, if we steal a bite, it's like, oh, mama tax coming in.
Oh, that's so cute.
And so my kids now, and they take bites from other people's plates or each other's, they'll say their own tax, you know.
Oh, I love that.
Even though they had nothing to do with the purchasing or creation of the food that's on the plate.
I mean, maybe they set the table.
No.
Well,
sometimes.
Yeah,
sometimes.
Okay. So if there's mac and cheese or something like that on the plate, yeah, I might try a little something. This is From the Ground Up. I'm Inc. Executive Editor Diana Ransom.
And I'm Editor-at-Large Christine Ligorio-Chafkin. Today's episode, Jumping Off the Shelf.
So Christine, for today's episode, I spoke with Jen Zeszut, who is the CEO and co-founder of a company called Goodles. So we profiled Jen and her company for our annual Female Founders package, and she was just so dynamic. She just sprang off the page. I wanted to talk to her. So Jen is not a first-time founder. This is like her third company she's co-founded. She's sort of been around the block. She started up a couple of marketing firms, sort of software-oriented.
Yeah.
But this is like the first consumer packaged goods company she's founded. She was also a CEO of another company called Cerebelly, which was like a baby products company.
Oh, sure, I know of them. Mm-hmm.
So she's been around. Goodles makes mac and cheese, which maybe you've heard of or tried. Basically,
Mac and cheese, I've had it.
Well, the Goodles version, it's like the quote-unquote better for you version of the product. But they try to infuse like interesting flavors. There's one that's called Twist My Parm, which is like Twist My Arm.
Mm-hmm. There's like a cacio e pepe one, right?
Yeah. So they try to sort of infuse more adult palate-oriented tastes with the boxes. So, you know, basically you would think mac and cheese is for kids. And what they're doing is trying to kind of make it a little bit more adult-oriented.
Yeah.
The packaging is fun and colorful, and that's Goodles.
It's also fortified, right? There's more kind of density of vitamins and minerals. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's just really like the key is the pasta is not just a sort of standard flour-based pasta. Maybe they have like a chickpea in the mix or something like that. So this is where they go, the better for you ingredients there.
Oh, got it.
So everybody loves mac and cheese. I wanted to learn a little bit more about her company. And you've also, over the years, kind of talked to other people in this field, right?
Yeah, I met with Jennifer Garner and one of her co-founders, John Foraker, in their baby food company, which I guess would probably be a competitor to Cerebelly. They make pouches of really like nutrient-dense, fruit and veggie-dense food for baby. Once upon a farm. Yeah. And John used to run Annie's, which sells mac and cheese. And one of the things he told me was it was a frustrating experience for him at times because, you know, he was really big on childhood nutrition. And he said there's only so much nutrition we can pack in a box of pasta.
Right.
Which, I mean,
that's really funny.
If you look at Goodles, like there is more nutrition you can pack in a box. If you look at that label, right, it looks more nutrient dense.
Yeah, and that's kind of the thing that they were doing. So Jen was sitting around with Paul Earle, who's the co-founder of her company. They were thinking about like, okay, so what's a category that's like basically not been quote unquote innovated? And they thought of mac and cheese. Can you make a better for you pasta? And they, with Jen's experience working at Cerebelly, she had a food scientist like on call. Nice to have.
Yeah.
So she met up with the food scientists. And anyway, we'll get into all those details in the actual interview.
Okay, great. I can't wait to hear it.
So within 5 months of launching the company, you all went big. You went to 1,900 Target stores.
We did.
You launched.
We did.
1,900 stores. So you went big. What is I guess if you were to like step back for a second and think about like the justification for going big, like why do that?
Right.
Instead of like doing the whole like try a region, see what it's like, iterate.
Yes. To be honest, that was kind of Paul's idea. He's like, well, just, you know, make a couple boxes and we'll stick it in a local region of Whole Foods and see how it does. No, I'm not doing that. I kind of instilled no, we're going big or we're going home from day one. And I think it's because it doesn't necessarily work for every brand, but we had our sights set on one of the biggest food brands in the country. Like, if we're going to compete against the General Millses and the Crafts of the world, who are incredible companies with huge, deep pockets and are smart marketers and all that kind of stuff, we've got to play a very big game. And it's a different game. We can't play their game. It's got to be our own game. So we knew we kind of had to, if they were going to zig, we were going to have to zag, because we could never afford.
Right, you can't compete on the same platform.
Nope, can't do it. But we knew we were going to go big. Now, we knew we wanted to go big. I didn't know anybody at Target. We didn't know anyone who would return our calls. And, yes, I had done baby food. And so, yeah, I knew my Target buyer. She had left the company. She's now, it's not the same people. So it doesn't really matter if you knew someone one time who used to work there, whatever. If you don't know who's on the desk, who's making the decisions for your category, you don't know anybody.
So what did you do? Did you mail your product to the Target people?
Well, I guess that was the very
Did you
first
show up and say,
Scrappy,
eat my mac and cheese? Yeah.
Kind of. I mean, it took a year from that point to actually launch in Target, to get ready and all of those sorts of things. But yeah, that was probably you can plan all you want for going big, but that is very unusual for a national retailer without $1 of revenue to make a bet like that. And they did. Actually, we were just at Target yesterday in Minneapolis, and I actually put up for our current buyer the original pitch deck that I showed to them in April of 2021. And it was the stupidest thing you've ever seen. The logo's not the same. And I think all the names of our flavors were different. I think it was called Propa Peppa or something.
Ooh, that's cute.
Okay, it's not cute. It's not cute.
All right, I'm obviously not the branding whiz.
But it had little weird, we hadn't actually made the food. And so we had little photoshopped flecks of pepper on there or whatever. We were laughing so hard. We're like, why did you say yes to us? But we're so glad that you did. And the rest is history.
Yeah.
So a lot of fate and a lot of blessings and people to be thankful for, little angels along the way for us, for sure.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you've also become, I guess, a destination for people wanting to get Goodles, not just parents, for instance, buying products for their kids.
Yeah.
But adults, too.
Yeah.
So I think that's helped. That's helped you along the way, right?
For sure. It's no doubt part of the secret of this success. And for any entrepreneurs listening, just if there's one thing to take away, I think this is it. That idea that most people are going into a category and you're going up against some kind of incumbent. If those are big company incumbents, we can't outspend them. We out coupon them. We can't out slotting fee them. I don't even want to have so much money that we could actually do that. So you can't play their game. You got to play a different game. And so for us, the genius move for Goodles was making that decision to not go after moms with little kids, because Kraft is doing that and Annie's is doing that. And, they do it really, really well. I mean, Annie's is a great kitty brand with goldfish and gummies and all of those sorts of things. They do kitty really well. We can't rent cuter kids than they're renting for their commercials, right? They're adorable. We can't even afford a commercial. Let's be honest here. And, Kraft is noodle art to do with your 3-year-old and things like that. You just can't play that game. So that decision right there was so key for us, because we just said, we're going after young adults. We might get some moms with kids, but that's not what we're trying to do. So it meant that we needed design that looked a certain way. It needed names that were kind of edgy and twist down the hatch and, fun things kids would either get or not get. But that insight right there is really, I think it's been the reason that the retailers have really rolled out the red carpet for us, because what it means is that we're incremental revenue for them. So we don't go in saying we're going to take down all of your Kraft revenue or your Annie's revenue. They're pretty partial to that revenue. They don't actually want that to go away. But if we can actually bring people back to Mac, and then there's young adults who have used to love Mac, but they haven't had it since college, or they're trying not to eat it, so they try to stay away, or they think it's a guilty pleasure, so they minimize. If we can bring those people back to Mac, it's incremental to the category. So now we're a win-win-win. Retailers can keep much of their revenue. They might be losing a little bit of share, but they can keep a lot of their revenue, and we are incremental to the category. So yeah, Target actually gave us the numbers that we're 81% incremental to the category.
That's amazing. So you're not even really a threat to Annie's and Kraft
I
to be
don't think
honest.
so,
Yeah.
because we're skating to a totally different white space. And the beauty of that is not just, A, for retailers, because then it's like a win-win. Like, I'll take this revenue and I'll take that. Would you like 81% more revenue?
Why, yes, please. Yeah,
we'll take
sign me
some
up.
more of that. So there's that, which is hugely supportive for our brand. But it also means that we don't have to compete with them. And it's also those brands that have existed for so long, they've kind of already built their brand and they stand for something. So, something like a kitty brand, like an Annie's, couldn't really do some of the marketing campaigns that we do. Like we just launched gluten-free pasta, and our gluten-free pasta is so delicious that you don't have to cover it in sauce. So the whole campaign was Taste Great Naked. And it was kind of edgy. Like the
Annie's
box,
is never going to do that.
yeah, right? The box comes out of the steam room and drops the towel and does this. It's hysterical. If you're an adult, you're just crack up. But right, they can't follow. So it also means that we just have a moat around the brand as well. Or, a craft that it does a great job of what it does, which is really cost-effective and low-cost food and calories for your family. They can't really pivot and suddenly say that we're premium nutrition and we care tons about clean ingredients. That's just not their brand. They haven't stood for that for 80 years. So it's hard. So it helps us in both ways.
Because even if they did launch a better for you pasta, then it would make their current pasta look bad for you, right? So they're sort of stuck.
You make your bed.
Yeah.
And they've made their bed, their brand bed for decades. And people,
That's interesting.
Yeah, you can't break your promises. So, and that's going to be just as true for us. We make a certain promise about what our product represents, and it is premium ingredients, and it's premium nutrition, and it is delicious taste always, first and foremost. If it doesn't taste good, we would never, ever launch it. And we can't break those promises either. So if you do your job well, you're kind of in your lane.
Right.
Hard to pivot.
Well, we talked about, you mentioned before about your career arc and, starting software companies. So it occurs to me that you have very strong background in marketing. And obviously working at Cerebelly as CEO for as long as you did, you have some insight into consumer product goods. But what's changed in the CPG landscape recently that maybe Goodles hasn't had to deal with it necessarily, but what are you seeing that other companies are having to deal with now?
Oh man, so much is changing about just how CPGs, how any kind of consumer packaged good goes to market these days. The old rules that I learned in my P&G days are just really somewhat out the window.
Like what? What's a rule that's out the window?
Oh, man. I just think that's the marketing tactics that used to work, they aren't working anymore. And I think that's, for example, one of the software companies that I had was doing that. It was allowing consumer packaged goods to run analytics on every single marketing tactic that they're running. Billboards, out of home, radio, coupons, everything, including digital and other types of things too. What's working, what's not working, and what would allow you to grow way faster. And the shocking thing to me is that these big CPGs would pay us millions of dollars sometimes millions of dollars for us to run this analytics. And then they would say, thank you very much. And they wouldn't change anything.
Oh, no.
They just keep
Thank
doing it.
you for the information.
Yeah, they just keep doing it. And it's just because that's how you do what you've always done. And there's just so much fear in trying something new. That's always been there. I think big companies in general, I remember from my old CPG days, it's like if I had a crazy idea, and believe me, I had lots of crazy ideas.
You?
It was very clear that my days were numbered at big CPG because I literally came with some crazy ideas and my bosses were like, okay, she's insane. And I also remember that for any new idea, you have to prove that there's no downside. So you put all of your energy into proving that there's no risk. And even things that had big upside, like this could be a giant win, was seen as suspicious. So I remember dumbing down the number. Let's just take the actual, let's take it way down to try to get things sold in. Obviously, there's a role for that, but I do think that that's very outdated thinking. You got to be ready and willing to take some risks and swing for some fences because I think the consumer has just changed. They, the formulaic commercial that says consumer insight, problem solution, better than competitor, like that formula just doesn't work anymore. People want authentic. They want kind of scrappy, kind of real. And obviously that's another big part of Goodles' success is we're just a little tiny startup. We don't have an agency. We're not doing commercials. We're filming stuff in our parking lot. I guess he was 15 when we started, was my son as our video editors, like editing things for us. Like we're all just doing whatever we can. It's a family business. And I think that consumers resonate with that as well. What we do just doesn't look big and corporate. And I think humans like rooting for underdogs. So it makes it tricky for big CPG. The rules have really changed.
Yeah. We just ran a story about sort of like the vagaries of CPG companies dealing with grocery stores right now. And it's just, obviously, they're the same old, the slotting fees and the downsides of getting, say, stuck on the bottom shelf, for instance. Those have always been there.
Yeah.
But now it's like, if you don't sell, you get dropped.
Right.
And so what does that produce in you as a business owner? Like, you're like, oh my God, is this intense? Like, do you have to market your product like all the time?
Well,
like, can you ever stop?
You're totally right. I mean, on the one hand, that box becomes so important because you don't usually control where you're going to end up on shelf. Although, if you are in that win-win where your incremental revenue to the retailer, part of rolling out the red carpet is let's get you front and center eye level because your incremental dollars, your incremental revenue, like your growth for the category. Oh, yeah.
I thought you were going to say you just show up at the store and move all the product up.
No. No. Definitely don't do that.
We don't have time for that.
No, we don't have time for that. But no, you're right. It is really tricky. And whenever we talk to retailers, it's like, you got to give these little brands a shot. Like you can't, the chicken and the egg thing. If you say that you back young brands, that means putting it at eye level and actually giving it a shot. No one SKU on the bottom shelf. Well, it didn't turn. I don't know. You know what I mean? It's like, so the retailers have to truly partner to give us a shot. And we've been lucky enough to really get that front and center placement every single time. But the packaging has to be crazy too. I don't know if you've seen our pasta boxes. They are neon pink. And we did that on purpose because the pasta aisle is so blue and so brown and so gray. And it seems like every box is like, no, my Italian grandma's older than your Italian grandma. And it's like this competition of like who's more old and fusty than the others. And we're just like, no, we cannot do that. So neon pink, and we shine on that shelf. Your head just goes, what? And that's what we need to do is signal that something's different down this aisle. Because if you're going to get incremental sales, then you have to signal to people that there's something different down that aisle. Because if we're 81% incremental at a mass retailer, it means that those people have walked past that aisle and be like, no, mac and cheese, I don't even need to walk down that one anymore. I don't eat that. I just don't eat that much anymore. And we have to get them down that aisle. And so the packaging becomes really important. I also think that for us, secondary displays become really important. End caps, side caps, things that arrest attention and get people to walk down that aisle. But of course, the biggest leverage you've got is your marketing and your fans and our consumers who just appear to be gaga for Goodles. Like that is our best possible marketing. So surprising.
All right, hold on a moment. It sounds like Goodles being, as Jen put it, scrappy. With this kind of DIY marketing vibe, it actually gave them an advantage over incumbents. Is that true?
Maybe. I don't know if it was an advantage necessarily. I think basically from her experience, she kind of knew what worked, which is helpful when you're starting a company. She knew like dynamic coloring in your packaging will sort of attract the eyes when you walk by. And I think the biggest key, though, is how she was able to showcase like, okay, we're not actually stealing market share from anybody. We're actually providing you, dear customer, dear Target or the Walmarts of the world, we're providing you additional revenue that you didn't even have before. We're giving you brand new customers, adult customers, for instance, not just kids, buying mac and cheese. This is what's called incremental revenue. They're driving a whole new revenue stream for Target. So yeah, Target's going to be like, yes, please come back. Please Like, give us more. Sell us more products.
So like positioning yourself not just as an underdog within an existing category, but like you're kind of creating a new category within it. Yeah.
Totally. Creating a new category.
Cool. I love it. And I love that those boxes are just really hard to miss. Bright pink box amidst a sea of beige.
Yeah. And, there's no flexing pieces of broccoli or like,
right.
People lifting or different vegetables lifting weights. Like you can still kind of like give off the vibe of this is healthy, this is different without being just like everybody else.
Yeah. So what did you two talk about next?
Well, we talked about basically like no business can really strike a chord without a core audience. And so we get into the core audience.
So turning the people who spot that pink box into your
your super fans.
Yeah. Great.
You're also made significant inroads with like quote unquote micro communities.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So we were talking a bit about in a past conversation just about the fans that you have cultivated among like, kids with autism, for instance, or like children who are recovering from illness. Was that intentional? Like, how did this happen?
Oh my God, how did this happen? No, and it's one of the most surprising and rewarding parts of all of this because, like we started the conversation, mac and cheese, you just see huge opportunity and you just think about the primary use case. Or technically, we thought about like that very, very first, what I think about it in terms of bowling pins is like which bowling pin do I want to hit at the beginning? And we really focused on young, single adults, no kids, trying to eat healthier and better. That was our first bowling pin. And we knew that there's like other worlds of bowling pins, either the fitness community or certain communities. We were hoping that eventually the first pin would knock down some other pins. But who knew that there were pins like what you mentioned? And those are just letters that get written into us, just fan mail that comes in, sometimes through DMs, lots of handwritten notes, which is just incredible. But so many really rewarding surprises. We've gotten letters from people who are looking for safe foods after being anorexic. Goodles became the first safe carb that they felt comfortable eating, and they're on the right track with their eating disorder. There are people who write us, unfortunately, parents of pediatric cancer patients, their kiddos. It's been hundreds of letters that get written in, and some of my friends, unfortunately, who have had that situation. But going through chemo is really, really hard on your tummy and you just want to eat comfort food, but you got to get nutrition into those kiddos. Autism is a really important one. I've got 3 kids. 2 of mine are on the spectrum, one with really severe sensitivities and protein, just too many textures and veggies. The texture just doesn't fit and doesn't work. And so it really is hard when you have kids with, whether it's on the autism spectrum or just picky eaters, it gets really, really hard as a parent. So none of those things were expected, but it's really incredible
and how do you,
experience.
How do you lean into those? Like, do you? Or, obviously it's grown organically. Like these communities kind of find you, but yeah.
Well, it's funny that you say that. We're hatching some plans because it's one of those things, it's happening all around us, and just like the love and support from these communities, and it's so interwoven into our brand story and my story and my kids. And we actually have one of our employees is severely autistic, and he comes and he works in our office. His name is Cyrus, and he's just such a bright light in our lives, and he's so wonderful and does such good work for us. So we're thinking a lot about that. Like, how do we, if our mission is to make be and do gooder, how can we tell that story a little bit better and to support this community better? So I guess stay tuned. I honestly, I'm not keeping any secrets from you. We're trying to figure it out right now. But it feels important to us, and I hope it's this year that we do something.
That sounds great. So switching gears here for a second, but staying with marketing.
Yeah.
We have this like a raging debate at Inc. where we're
so excited.
You know the book Knuffle Bunny or Knuffle Bunny?
Yes.
Okay, so Goodles or Goodles. Okay, so some people here think that the brand should be pronounced as Goodles, like noodles, but you obviously pronounce it as Goodles.
Yes.
And I think that everybody here agrees, and we understand that the brand like ethos is like to do gooder. So we get it, but at the same time, like, did you mean for that to have confusion? And is that in itself like kind of a marketing stunt?
So if you're asking Paul, Paul would say he loves that it could be Goodles, it could be Goodles, it could be whatever you want it to be, whatever makes you happy. And that is true. I definitely agree with that. That's true. However, someone with a name like Zeszut, I believe a brand is a person. So when I meet someone, and if I don't really know how to say their name, I want to make sure I get your name right. How do you say your name? I don't want them to say, it's whatever you want to do. I want to say, no. I'm meeting you. Like I want to meet you. So I think the answer is both. Like there is a way. We are Goodles. We emphasize the good in Noodles Gooder. And so that emphasis on good is how we say it and everyone at the company says it. So if you ever ask me, how do you say it? My answer is we say Goodles because we emphasize the gooder in Noodles Gooder. But honestly, say it however you want and whatever makes you smile. That's totally fine with us and we love it.
So the Knuffle Bunny debate rages
yes,
on.
It does.
So speaking of another marketing point, the packaging, we talked about how it had to be really like shocking when you walked by the aisle. So you would capture people's attention. The advice you got, though, before starting the company was quite the opposite. And do you feel very vindicated at this point? Tell us about the advice that you got before you started the company. And then, why did you decide to go the opposite direction?
Yeah, thank you for remembering that. It's a real and important kind of part of our story. We were told no by lots and lots of VCs. So even though it looked like a cherry moment for Paul and I in that first 15 minutes of talking together.
You mean venture capitalists didn't get it right away?
No offense to our VC friends of the world, but I think they all think they're visionaries and sometimes they're not. No, we were told no maybe 100 times at the beginning. And yeah, so a lot of it was due to the packaging. They said, if it's better for you and if it's healthy, it should be green. You should have veggies all over the front. Like, it has spinach in it. Put spinach on the box. I even got, in order to telegraph protein, could you have like broccoli on there? Like doing push-ups? Kids will love that. So like everything about that advice was, I will say, it did not sway us at all. Paul and I like, nope. Keep looking because clearly they don't get it. We believed from the very beginning if you're going to go big and if we wanted to build a mass brand, which, you asked that question in the beginning, are we niche? Are we mass? If you're building a mass brand, it has to have mass appeal. It can't look like a little niche, healthy something. So we didn't want veggies on our box. We didn't want it to be green. It wasn't for kids. So we don't want anthropomorphic veggies doing push-ups or anything like that. And I was like, no, just keep looking. We never once had a conversation of like, gosh, maybe we should think twice. Maybe we should make it green or healthier. Not even one single time I was like, no, we'll just keep looking. Like they're going to see it eventually.
Yeah, I like that the takeaway from that was, after all those no's, you realized actually they're not the right person for us.
If you've done your work and you've really done the math, like if you just kind of have an idea and you're putting it out there and someone disagrees, like really do listen to smart people. And we listen to a lot of smart people as we were building our business plan. But if it's truly thought through and you feel it at least if I feel it in my bones, don't be swayed by it. Just keep looking. There's going to be someone who sees the world the way that you see the world, and that's who you want as your partner. And we're just so lucky to have found the investors that we do have around the table because that belief in the product will get you through, and belief in, an alignment on what the product and the brand can and should be. It'll get you through, obviously, the good times, but the good times are easy to get through. It's the hard times that will get you through if you're aligned on that. It even comes through in the term sheet that you get. The terms in your term sheet, you can tell if someone's a believer or if they're not really a believer because...
How do you tell on the term sheet?
Completely, because it could have a lot of like preference and financial engineering and if it fails and if it's this and it's this and all that kind of stuff.
So they're covering their ass versus like being a partner.
Yes. Yeah. So if you get a term sheet that is totally clean, that basically is like, we're all in this together and no matter what happens, we are equals when all things said and done, as long as we can get to this level. That's a believer. So I see, find your believers, and it's the most important thing. Now, you can't always do that. I've had so many, you do the best you can and you get the deal that you possibly can, but do think twice about starting a company, because if it's not structured right from the very beginning and you have a term sheet that really is demotivating to either you or your employees, then what are you doing this for? What are you putting all that life force into this? Because it takes everything. It takes every ounce of life force that you have and a little bit more to do this. So actually one of those most important things that you're ever going to do is just the agreements up front when you sign those deals with your financial partners. Better make sure that you're aligned on that vision.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, you were also talking, the importance of team is kind of coming through here too. So you mentioned Paul. He has a CPG background, was at Northwestern, and then you teamed up with Deb Luster, who was, I guess, the original president of Annie's.
Yes.
And then Wonder Woman. Like, how does all this happen?
Oh my gosh. And Molly Mache. She's truly our Wonder Woman because she's our formulator, our magic R&D formulator who somehow makes all this taste yummy.
Good job, Molly.
But yes, it really is all about team. And that's actually the other thing. That's part of the cherry moment. It was just like, oh my gosh, I know all the people. And that's the benefit of being so old as I am. I've done so many companies. And every time you do a company, you kind of log. You're like, ooh, if I were ever doing that, I'm definitely pulling in that person and that person as person. And Paul did the exact same thing. I mean, Dan Chaudhry, executive creative director, is like the best he's ever worked with at all of his agency life. And Greg and I have worked together for years and years. And luckily, we have good enough relationships that we can pick up the bat phone and be like, I need ya. And everyone jumped at it.
What's the key lesson you learned from like starting up other companies before you founded Goodles?
There's a million things that you learn. Like, I've made so many mistakes. And I think that, whatever, we're making different mistakes, but at least I'm not making all the mistakes I made in the first company or the second company or the third company. So anyway,
brand
there's
new
so
mistakes.
many. Yeah. We just look forward to making new ones.
Well, hopefully they get less onerous, the mistakes, as you go. I don't know, maybe not if you're going as big as you're going.
Each time it is a little bit different. The speed and scale of this company comes with a whole new set of challenges that I've never had before. So we're just figuring stuff out every single day. So yeah, it does pose, when you're almost tripling every year for this many years, for 3 years, it's
What's the downside
staggering.
of that fast growth?
Oh my gosh. Ask my team. We're exhausted.
Yeah.
We're exhausted because it's, I sometimes tell them it's dog years. We do dog years.
Oh, so
really,
you've been around for 4 years, but actually 28.
Yeah, we've been in the market for 3 years, but basically it's been the same that another brand would do in 21. But which is really true. Like you've Kodiak Cakes or something like that, a better for you brand, 23 years, I want to say, in the making. Even Annie's, great company, great brand. They really didn't take off till you were 13. Rayo's more than 30 years. So like it usually takes a really long time. And we're facing all the same challenges that every brand has to. Oops, hi, we need way more and you can't supply it. What can you do? And trying to figure things out. And it's all the same problems.
Right.
But having to do it this quickly is freakishly weird. But you do have to have the right people. You have to have the right people who are like, all right, let's go figure that out next.
I mean, and then how do you keep that magic alive? Like, how do you keep the culture positive?
Yeah, because it is really exhausting and my team is incredible. But winning is really, really fun. So it's rewarding. It's really rewarding to come back from a retailer pitch and just saying, oh my gosh, you guys, guess what happened? Or, seeing the record sales numbers come in week after week after week. You're just like, is this actually happening? So we are definitely addicted to winning.
Yeah.
That external validation of legendary business performance is something that really actually defines us.
How do you hire for that? Somebody who might be inspired by winning?
Yeah. It's super important and we're not apologetic about it at all because there is a lot of joy and a lot of fun and a lot of weird and a lot of love and care that we have for one another. That's all true for this culture and this brand. But that winning part and legendary business results is kind of at the core and it always has been. So even our mission statement, which we say all the time and we make sure that every employee knows what they're signing up for, but we say that we're an elite team with arms locked, having fun and doing the best work of our lives in order to create a legendary product and a legendary brand to generate legendary impact in our communities, all at service to generating legendary business results. So it's like right there in our mission statement, and we do talk about it all the time. but it can't be separated. I mean, imagine a company where it's just goofy and fun and all those sorts of things, but it's failing. That's not fun. It's just not fun. Like winning is definitely this team's culture. So we talk about it all the time.
It's also like proving that what you're doing is right and doing well. So
it means we're on the right track. Because a lot of times in business, because a lot of times you're like, is this the right call? Is that the right call? Or especially when you got like VCs or others in the industry telling you it's a bad choice. Man, it makes it really, really fun.
That is tough. So this idea of legendary business results, gosh, you say it with such confidence that I truly believe it. And I'm a believer in exactly what you're saying. But I'm wondering, like, when did you realize that you needed to do this? You could have a cute company, you could like have a disco in the grocery store aisle, but you also need to get legendary business results.
Well, I can tell you the exact moment that I realized that. It was after selling my first company, which is great that we had an exit.
Scout Labs.
And it was, 16 months after launch and had lots and lots of CPG and great companies that are customers. And right after that, the CEO of the acquiring company sat me down and said, wow, you're such a great leader and your team likes you and loves you and all that kind of stuff. But you had a smallish exit, which is great and all, but you're never actually going to have a big exit because you think that people matter and you think culture matters and all this, like how you do what you do. Jen, it's a game. And unless you play the game, you're never going to truly do anything really big. And it was in that moment where I was like, okay, on the one hand, we're going to agree to disagree on that one. On the other hand, he's actually right. That if you just have a fun, crazy brand, or you just have a yummy product, or you just treat people well, and just those sorts of things, no one really cares. If it just fizzles and dies out, we haven't changed anything. We haven't changed what VCs choose to fund. We haven't changed the industry. We haven't changed anyone's thinking about what's possible. If you're going into business, the measure of success for business is a legendary outcome. Like you have to have great, profitable business results. And then that will change people's thinking of what's possible. People will look at the next Goodles and say, oh, I want people to copy our great nutrition. Please, everyone, please copy Goodles' great nutrition. Change the way that we're making food because Goodles was successful. Please change the way that we invest in CEOs. Still, females are only 4% of VC-backed companies. That's ridiculous. 4% of VC-backed companies are led by women. It should be much, much higher than that. But again, until we have a legendary business outcome, it's not going to change the culture. But I want to change the culture.
But it wasn't because you cared about your team, right? Like what he was saying was that because you care about your team, you're never going to achieve legendary business results.
And right then and there, I said, okay, I get it. I getcha. That's how we change this guy's mind. This is how we change a culture is you actually do it. And once you do it, they're going to look back at all the ways, the how that you did what you did, and that will then be validated. So I want people to pattern match against Goodles as a product. I want people to see amazing, joyful, new ideas. I want them to see passionate women leading companies and be like, God, she reminds me of a Jen. But they're not going to say that until we do something really big. So yeah, that's the moment where I was just like, no, we got to do something big because I want people to look back. And that's the legacy that I think we all as a team, and they all know that story. They are conscripted into my mission and we're all on this together. We're going to change the way that people think about what can be successful and how you can be successful. Because how we really believe that how you do it matters. It's not just what's in that box. It's the joy and the care that we put into it. I know it matters. So we just have to prove it. And we haven't done it yet, but we will.
You're on your way.
We're on our way. We're on our way.
And did that factor into the idea that from the outset of going big, like because you wanted to achieve legendary business results?
Probably psychiatric evaluation.
Let me understand you.
We just laid out on this couch here. Yes, I guess I've never made that connection, but you are probably right.
I understand it all.
I apparently do.
I get it.
More than I have ever thought about it, but thank you.
Well, if I can do nothing else, I can help you look in the mirror. There are so many interesting things, but the one thing that really jumped out at me was the unsolicited advice that she had gotten from the acquiring company that her first company had been sold to.
She sold the marketing firm?
Right.
Yeah.
So this person basically told her, your company's really cute and everything, and yeah, we want to buy it, but you're never going to actually lead a really impressive business one day because you care about your people too much. I mean, that's ridiculous. I mean, you want to be in business because, you want to run your own schedule. You want to be able to control your life. Like, we talk to female founders all the time who have various reasons, but a lot of them at the end of the day want to have like a really strong culture. They care about the people that work with them. And so this idea of running a company that one day has like legendary business results so she can go do all the weird things or like the amazing cultural things that she wants to do like at her actual business and have that be the thing that allows you to be weird, to like lean into the weird and to like jump off the shelf, for instance. Like,
yeah, I love that. To what extent do you think that was like this thing that stuck in her brain and motivated her?
I mean, the way she talks about it, like I've talked to her separately outside of this conversation, and she's like a big fan of this term, legendary business results. So I kind of suspect that it like permeates her entire existence in a way that's really like amazing. But I think it's true. At the end of the day, you want to run a business that's going to make an impact. And if you don't spur enormous sales, maybe you won't have that impact. And that's a big takeaway for our audience and for anyone who's trying to disrupt the pasta aisle.
I love it. And Goodles now is the #1 highest velocity mac and cheese, vegan mac and cheese in the country, right?
We write about fast growth all the time. And it's nice when you meet an entrepreneur who's, not just speaking a good game, but actually they're walking the talk. She's running this company with her family, too.
Yeah.
And it's kind of cute. And they're really scrappy.
And it's beyond cute. I mean, she's writing her own rules for success. So,
yeah, we should all be so lucky.
That's all for this episode of From the Ground Up.
Be sure to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your podcast platform of choice. Also, if you liked this episode or have suggestions for topics you'd like to hear about, reach out to us on Inc.'s social channels. And leave us a review wherever you listen.
From the Ground Up is produced by Avery Miles, Sam Gabauer, and Hawa Otori, with Diana Ransom and myself. Lead producer is Blake Odom. Editing by Matt Toder. Mix and sound design by Nicholas Torres. Our executive producer is Josh Christensen. Thanks for listening, and we will see you next week.